Think I'm gonna give y'all a quick little video while I'm out in what some people, I wouldn't consider it necessarily sundown, but they say it got sundown vibes. I'm right across by Matamidi. And I'm gonna slide through there one day so y'all can kind of see it. I'm gonna go around the lake 100%. But now, I've heard white people, even when I was taking my cybersecurity classes, I've heard white people in White Bear Lake that they said some things about White Bear Lake. White Bear Lake, and I was just talking to my good brother Solomon, my homie. We was debating back on that $2,000 that he said I'm gonna pay. He said I'm gonna pay $2,000 to the African Union. So we was going back and forth about that. We be, you know, so now the sundown towns that were primarily in the north. My dad used to talk about the difference. I talked about that before, about the difference between the north and the south. And I just talked to a military vet the other day about that. He was like, yeah, man, them northern states was something else. And this is a military vet. This brother, he grew up in the 60s and the 70s. So I was just talking to him about it. And so, sundown towns, there's a white guy that wrote a book. I forgot his name, but I'll put it up in the chat. Or I'll upload it. There was a white guy that wrote a whole book on all the sundown towns and really breaking down what a sundown town was. Do not let the sun sit on you. If you ever seen Lovecraft Country, that's a prime example. I wish I could just get the video and show it to y'all. I'm looking at this phone too long, man. Shit. I wish I could get the video and show it to y'all. So the sundown towns in the north, there was more in the north than in the south. It was tons of sundown towns. It's a lot of them in California. Oregon was a sundown state. Black Americans had to put in a lot of work out there in Oregon. There's some Black American pioneers that y'all probably don't even know about. One of them is a sister. I can't remember her name, but I'm gonna find her name. I'm gonna find her too. One sister, she put in a lot of work out there as a pioneer of Oregon. You had to be real solid. You had to be super solid to be a black person. A black person in Oregon, that was a sundown. The entire state was sundown. Oregon was a sundown state. As you know, in Indiana, I had a buddy from Chicago that said he was doing like security for Yo Gotti and a lot of those artists. And I asked him, out of all the places, Alabama, out of all the places y'all went, what was the worst place driving through? And he told me Indiana. He told me Indiana was a trip. He said, don't go through Indiana like that, bro. Some of them back roads of Indiana somewhere. So I'm hearing more reports from black truck drivers about sundown towns going and delivering things. I think Vidor, Texas was one of them. But back to Matamidi and White Bear Lake, I had some white people tell me before, you know, if you black, don't really be out in White Bear Lake at night. I've heard some white people tell me that. And I've heard a couple black people that told me the same thing that white people told them. Hey, White Bear Lake, Matamidi at night, you know, there's been no reported of lynching, so I'm not going to put that on them. We're not going to be false. But, you know, some of these little places kind of out the way in Minnesota and whatnot, yeah, you know, those might be a little weird for you too. They might be a little weird for you. Glasses. What do I do with these glasses? So, I am gonna put that book up. That book was, now, remember, I did a program. I think y'all could go back and look at that. I'm gonna link it. There was a program on all the sundown areas geographically that are suspected to be sundown or sundown. Albert Lee was on the list. Minnesota has a ton of them still to this day. They just may not go, they may not get reported, because you got to understand that a lot of times what'll happen in these sundown towns, they'll let a black person, one or two stay, or it might be some college students or something like that, or they'll let black immigrants. They might hire some black immigrants that don't come. They may not know too much about what's going on. So a lot of white people will look at it as, well, he don't really know. He don't have ties to the soil. So, he's no threat. We'll just let him kind of ride in here. Maybe one or two. So this has been a thing. And with the sundown towns, that's a part of black American culture. That's something that black folks from here have experienced. Our grandparents can speak to that. You see what I'm saying? So our story is unique. I remember I seen a video where Muhammad Ali. Let me tell you something. I just seen this. I'm gonna see if I can find this. I just seen a video where Muhammad Ali was talking about how during the Jim Crow time, and y'all can go look this up. During the Jim Crow time, they wouldn't let Muhammad Ali go in the restaurant. But he let black immigrants go through the restaurant. They had turbans on, or they had something like that. They knew they weren't from here. You see what I'm saying? So my homie says black folks should sue America for allowing these towns. Well, yeah, that could be in a class action lawsuit, but that's part of reparations too. That's part of our reparations claim. I'm saying that's a piece. That's a piece that we show, like, okay, these are the things that's still going on right now. These are the things that we're still subjected to. We're subjected to. And to be honest, and see, here's where it gets murky. I was telling my homie, if somebody from outside the country is saying, well, we need to get this claim, did your folks suffer through that sundown town? Did you specifically, did your great grandparents and your aunts and aunties and great aunts and stuff, did they suffer through those sundown towns? Especially the invent of the sundown towns. Did they suffer through that? And that's what I was trying to tell my guy. I said, look, we know people. We could talk to people that actually suffered through those sundown towns, even to this day. But I'm talking about like the Green Book. And that's what I was telling him. I said, if your folks ain't never had a Green Book, you can't make me pay. Yeah, you can't make me pay $2 grand a year, bro. We don't know nothing. If your folks didn't suffer through no Green Book, no. Absolutely not. There was a black FedEx worker. I think she was in Springfield, Illinois, or Springfield, Missouri, or somewhere. In Springfield, Missouri, I believe it was, there was a racial expulsion. They kicked all the black folks out, killed a bunch of them, unalived a bunch of them. That happened in the 1900s. There was a bunch of expulsions. Texas, there was a whole bunch of expulsions. They was burning black folks in Texas in the 1900s. They was doing all of that. Texas was a trip. They was burning black folks at the stake in Texas. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's our history. We owe for that. We for sure owe for that. Can't nobody tell us we don't get nothing for that. That's specific. You can talk to your grandparents about that. Tulsa and all that. Tulsa and all those Black Wall Street, that was the tip of the iceberg, man. There was a whole bunch of cities and states where in the early 1900s, they was burning and lynching blacks, killing black children. alligator bait. That's all within the white supremacist psyche. Hell yeah, we old for that. That is part of our culture. That's part of our history. That's a cultural piece of our history. Absolutely. So, class action lawsuit, he says. The class action lawsuit, that's what the anti-black racism crime bill was for. Where the Congressional Black Caucus at? They ain't really trying to pass it because they just want a Cadillac. They want a Cadillac and they want their biscuit party and they little fucking Essence Fest party or whatever they do. They ain't really, you know what I'm saying? They not really tripping on that.